Get ready for the unknown. If you love feeling the chill down your spine and venturing into stories that will take your sleep away, subscribe to our channel now and activate the bell. Don't miss the next horror tales that will take you to the darkest corners of your mind. Are you ready to face your fears? Portal is open. Enter, if you have the courage. His road has already taken more people than time itself, whispered the gas station attendant as he filled up João's car. The warning sounded strange. João just smiled in disbelief. As an experienced truck driver, he had already crossed countless dangerous roads in Brazil. The BR-144, however, was different. Ever since he'd started working on that route, he hadn't been able to ignore the stories. Mysterious accidents, unexplained collisions, and a figure that appeared out of nowhere on the asphalt. João heard the rumors, but never believed in hauntings, until that night. As he drove along the BR-144, the sky was filled with dense clouds, and darkness seemed to consume the horizon. The winding road snaked between mountains, cut by sharp bends and deserted stretches. The silence inside the cabin was heavy, and João turned on the radio to ease the tension. Suddenly, something caught his eye. In the reflection of the headlights, a silhouette appeared in the middle of the road. With no time to brake, he turned the wheels sharply. Truck skidded and crashed into the guardrail. Stunned, João got out of the truck, his heart racing, trying to understand what had happened. There were no other car markings and no signs of life. But he knew he had seen someone there, a slender figure in the middle of the road, with his back to him. In shock, he got back into the truck and decided to continue his journey. What he didn't know, however, was that this moment would only be the beginning of something much darker. The next day, while stopping at a rest stop, João overheard a conversation between two drivers. Another accident last night, right on the bend on the BR-144. One of them. João froze when he heard the comment. It was the same bend where he had almost lost control. The other driver nodded, looking used to it. Always the same story. Someone sees the girl on the road, tries to swerve, and that's it. Another one for the account. João felt a shiver run down his spine. Was it possible that he had seen the ghost of that girl on the road? Over the next few days, João couldn't get what he'd heard at the gas station out of his head. He began to notice a pattern. Every week, news of fatal accidents would always appear around the same bend, and always at night. Curiously, many survivors mentioned a mysterious figure appearing in the middle of the road, which caused the collision. For João, it was more than coincidence. Something strange was happening on that highway. Determined to understand what was really behind these accidents, João started talking to the old-timers on the road. Many talked about the woman of the BR-144. According to the stories, she would appear to unsuspecting drivers, usually on the darkest nights, always at a specific bend. They say she's out for revenge, commented an older truck driver. She was murdered here many years ago and has been causing accidents ever since. In 1998, a young woman called Isabella was brutally murdered on that stretch of the BR-144 highway. Her body was dumped on the bend where the accidents occur today. The case was never solved, and the main suspect, her boyfriend at the time, disappeared without a trace. From the moment Isabella's body was found, mysterious accidents began. Now João knew it wasn't just superstition. Something much more sinister was happening on that road, and he needed to find out how to put an end to it. But every night he spent on the BR-44, he felt the presence of that figure getting closer and closer, as if it was waiting for him. João decided to get back on the road that same night, determined to find out more about Isabella and what was really going on. The silence was overwhelming, and the tension kept him on his toes. As he drove along the BR-144, his hands were sweating on the steering wheel. He knew that at some point, he would have to face the truth. The figure everyone saw was real, and he was ready to face whatever came. When he reached the famous bend, he slowed down and carefully observed every detail. It was then that he saw her again. The silhouette of a woman standing by the side of the road, her long hair covering her face, and the light from the headlights barely able to illuminate her figure. João braked sharply, but this time he didn't swerve. He had to know. He got out of the truck cautiously, calling out to the woman. "Who are you?" he shouted, but the figure remained motionless. With every step he took towards her, the temperature dropped dramatically. When she finally got close, the woman slowly turned her face, revealing an empty look, but one full of pain. "You came to find me," she whispered in a voice that seemed to echo from deep within the earth. João stepped back, dread growing inside him. It was Isabella, or what was left of her. And now he understood that it wasn't just a spirit. There was a force behind that apparition, dark energy that was trapped in that place. Isabella raised her hand towards him, and John felt the air escape from his lungs. "Help me, or suffer as I have," she said, disappearing into the cold night air. John walked back to the truck, trembling, knowing that this was a warning. He would have to go deeper into the mystery of the road if he wanted to survive. Over the next few days, Isabella's image haunted him. João knew he was in a race against time. If he didn't solve the mystery behind her murder, it would only be a matter of time before he too fell victim to the road. So he returned to the nearest town and began to investigate the unsolved case further. He met an old friend of Isabella's, Marta, who worked in a local cafe. She told João that Isabella had discovered something terrible before her death. Her boyfriend was involved in a criminal scheme, and she had threatened to expose everything. Marta revealed that Isabella was murdered to silence her, but no one has ever been able to prove it. The boyfriend disappeared after the murder, and the case was dropped. "Isabella knew too much," said Marta, staring at João. "She just wanted justice, and now she won't rest until the truth is revealed." João understood that accidents were not random. Every time someone passed that bend, it was as if Isabella was trying to remind the world her killer was still unpunished. João decided that he had to find Isabella's ex-boyfriend. Following some clues, he discovered that he had changed his name and was living in a neighboring town, far from any suspicion. Confronting him would be risky, but it was the only way to free Isabella. She wasn't seeking revenge for nothing. She wanted justice. And until that happened, she would continue to cause accidents on the BR-144. That night, João decided it would be the last confrontation. He would find the man who had ruined Isabella's life and somehow end the curse of the BR-144. When he located her ex-boyfriend, Marcos, he confronted him on a deserted road near the BR-144. "You caused all this," said João, his voice firm, while Marcos frantically denied it. "I had no choice. I had to shut her up," shouted Marcos, revealing what João had already suspected. Before he could react, the air around them changed. The temperature dropped and a strong wind blew across the road. Isabella appeared again, this time sharper. Her expression of pain mixed with restrained fury. "You can't run away anymore," she whispered to Marcos. He tried to run, but it was as if an invisible force held him in place. João watched, unable to intervene. Isabella's justice had arrived. Marcos's body was found the next day, lying by the side of the road. The newspapers reported his death as a sudden heart attack. João knew the truth. Isabella had finally found peace, and the cycle of fatal accidents would end. However, as he was leaving the city, he looked in the rearview mirror and saw, for a brief moment, Isabella's figure waving at him, as if thanking him. João drove on, knowing that the road would never be the same, but also aware that some stories are never completely closed. After the confrontation with Isabella's spirit and Marcos's death, João believed that the nightmare was over. The BR-144 highway should be free of the curse, but he couldn't shake off a persistent feeling of unease. The weeks that followed the incident brought him more questions than answers. He kept dreaming about the road, and in his dreams he saw shadows that didn't belong to Isabella. There was something else, something much older and more dangerous. One night, while driving along the deserted road on another route, he received a phone call from Marta, Isabella's friend. "João, I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling. Marta had made new discoveries about the BR-144 while investigating Isabella's story. She said that even before the highway was built, that stretch of land was known for its tragic events. Since the 19th century, people had been reporting mysterious disappearances and sightings of spectral figures, long before any accidents involving cars. "Isabella isn't the only one," said Marta, in a frighteningly serious tone. "There's something else on that road." Marta mentioned an old legend about the Curve of Souls, a place where, in the past, several workers who helped build the road died in unexplained circumstances. Reports said that the workers heard voices at night and saw figures walking in the middle of the nearby forest. Since then, the spirits of the dead have wandered along the road, attracting disasters and tragedies. John felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought that Isabella's spirit was solely responsible for the accidents, but now he understood that the road carried a much darker history. These ancient spirits, Marta explained, have never found peace. The road was built on land where tragedies and injustices had already occurred, and the negative energy of that place seemed to awaken and feed on new death. Isabella, in a way, was just the latest manifestation of a long line of tormented souls. Uncomfortable and tormented by the new information, João decided to investigate further. He needed to understand what was really happening on the BR-144 and why so many accidents continued to happen, even after Isabella had finally found peace. Were there other spirits at work? João remembered the strange dreams he had been having, misty figures, shadows that watched silently as he drove. In his research, João discovered old documents that spoke of a tragic accident that took place in the 1920s, during the construction of a railroad line that cut through part of the region where BR-144 now stands. A group of workers died buried in a landslide and, according to reports, their bodies were never completely recovered. Local legends said that the souls of the buried workers still roamed the area, unable to rest. Over the years, the construction of the road over the place where they died intensified the phenomenon. The shaman, an elderly and reserved man, initially hesitated to help. He knew the road had been haunted for more than a generation by restless souls, and tampering with such ancient forces could be dangerous. "These souls have been trapped for a long time," said. "Freeing them won't be easy. They need to be remembered, and the place where they died must be purified." João was willing to take the risk. There was no other way forward. On the night of the ritual, João, Marta, and the shaman returned to the Curve of Souls. The road was silent, but the feeling of being watched was undeniable. The shaman began chanting in an ancient language, lighting bonfires around the road and scattering herbs on the ground. As the ritual progressed, João saw the figures of the workers beginning to appear again, but this time their expressions were of curiosity and hope. At one point, a strong gust of wind swept through the area, nearly extinguishing the fires. Figures seemed to stir, as if they were being called to leave. The shaman intensified his chants, and suddenly the shadows began to dissipate, one by one, slowly ascending toward the sky. João watched in silence, feeling that finally, after decades of suffering, those souls were finding peace. After the ritual, the atmosphere on the road changed. The BR-144 seemed to breathe easier, and for the first time in months, João no longer felt the oppressive presence that had always accompanied his trips. The mysterious accident stopped, and the road began to be seen again as just a simple route, no longer a corridor of death. Marta, satisfied with the outcome, thanked the shaman for his help, but they all knew the road bore deep scars. João, however, was not left unscathed by the experience. He knew the souls he had freed would remain with him in memory, and that in a way, he had become a guardian of the BR-144. The road was finally free of its ancient curses, but he also understood that there were forces beyond human comprehension, and not all the world's troubled souls could be freed so easily. As he looked toward the horizon, where the mountains encircled the BR-144, João smiled. He had done his part, helping those who had been forgotten for so long. And as he continued his life as a truck driver, he knew he would always look at the road with new eyes. Some stories, he realized, never truly end. They simply change form, waiting for new chapters.